This owl raises its family underground and uses poop to hunt. You're walking a dirt track along the edge of somebody's cattle pasture, a walk you made 100 times without thinking twice about it. Off to one side is a pile of what looks like an old cow manure, right at the mouth of a little hole in the ground. And normally you'd step around it and just keep on walking. Nobody wants to step through it, right? Then the manure blinks at you. What the hell? That's a little owl, about the size of a robin, is standing right on top of that pile of poop, propped up on legs like a couple of pencils, staring you down with a pair of huge yellow eyes. Right behind it, 2 or 3 little fuzzy gray chicks poke their heads out of the hole, checking out, well, they're checking you out the same way the parent is. That right there is a burrowing owl, and it might be the strangest owl in the country. It breaks nearly every rule you expect an owl to follow. Most owls live in trees. This one lives in a hole in the dirt, and instead of hiding until dark, it stands out in broad daylight, standing on top of poop. And that poop by the front door, it ain't an accident. This owl put it there on purpose. It put it there, okay? It picked it up and it put it there because the smell pulls in one thing it loves to eat more than anything else. Well, I'm Mr. V, and welcome back to the Hidden Lens. We're gonna have a poopy experience today. By the time we're done here, you're gonna know how a bird that can fly decided that underground was the best place to raise a family, and how it turned a rancher's leftover manure into a dinner bell. This owl's been running this operation a lot longer than anybody around been able to write about it. Let's start with what you're actually looking at. A burrowing owl stands somewhere between 7 to 10 inches tall, about the same height as an American robin stands. Not the Batman kind of robin, the bird kind of robin, but it's a good deal heavier and thicker through the body, probably than the Batman robin is too. Just kidding, Batman robin. This thing weighs somewhere between 4 and 9 ounces, which puts a lot of them right around the weight of a baseball. And its wings stretch out to close to 2 foot across. It's got a round, smooth head with no pointy feather turf like you'd see on a great horned owl. It has a pair of bright yellow eyes that sit in its face with a streak of white feathers above each one that reads almost like a permanent set of eyebrows. Its body is brown, speckled all over with white spots, but the legs are what really throw you off. They're long, bare, and gray, thin enough that they look like they wandered off some wading bird and ended up on an owl by mistake. This bird spread out across a huge stretch of the map, though. You'll find burrowing owls from the southern edge of Canada, down through the western United States into Florida, and through Mexico, Central America, and most of South America. They want flat, open ground with short grass or bare dirt, the kind you'll find in pastures, deserts, and farm fields. But they've also moved right into places people built for themselves, like golf courses, cemeteries, which I don't know people that built a cemetery for themselves, but I guess they do, and grassy medians out at the airport, and empty lots in towns. Cowboys riding the range gave this bird a nickname a long time ago. When a burrowing owl gets curious or nervous, it does this quick dip it bob. So dipping bob. Drops its head down and pops back up over and over and over. From a distance, it looks like somebody's nodding hello. So the old cowboys started calling it the Howdy bird, because every time they rode past a barrow, the owl standing guard out front looked like it was greeting them. Howdy. No, they were doing this. Anyway, every time one of those owls bobs like that, it's telling you howdy whether it means it or not. Go ahead and say it back. Hit that subscribe button right now and smash the like button while you're at it, because this owl isn't even close to done surprising you. Now, here's where this bird stops being another odd-looking animal and starts being something else entirely. Some burrowing owls dig their tunnels, especially the ones down in Florida, working the dirt loose with their beak and kicking it out backwards with their feet as they back towards the entrance. Most owls out west skip digging a brand new tunnel and just move into a hole somebody else already made. An old badger den or a retired ground squirrel tunnel. And they fix it up to their liking. They move the TV in, they got the sofa, and they got their poop. Either way, once the tunnel is finished and the curves back far enough that the daylight can't reach the nesting chamber, the owl does something that puzzled just about everybody who ever watched it happen. Back in the late 1860s, an Army officer named Charles Bendire, Bendire, was stationed out at Fort Lapado, Idaho, and passed the time between his duties. He started writing down everything he watched the local birds do. He watched burrowing owls at work near the fort and wrote down exactly what he saw. Once the digging was finished, he documented how the birds would drag in chunks of dried horse poop and cow poop and pack it down along the bottom of the nest, sometimes 1 or 2 inches thick. Well, he wrote it all up, and the Smithsonian published his notes a couple of decades later. For more than 100 years after that, nobody had a real answer for why an owl would want a floor made out of poop. Scientists, as smart as they are, they ruled out a few other explanations first, like whether the smell was there to scare off predators before they landed to the real one. But you know how scientists always rule out all this stuff? I think you and me could probably rule some of this shit out too. The reason they put poop in the manure was not because I liked it, because I don't, or you liked it, because I'm sure you don't either. We could rule out a whole lot of other shit, or poop. But as it turns out, the owl wasn't decorating. I kind of thought it was maybe decorating, but that wasn't it. It was fishing. It was on land, but it was fishing. So back in 2004, a University of Florida researcher named Douglas Levy kept noticing that the leftover pellets a burrowing owl coughs back up after a meal, they cough that stuff up, they were full of dung beetle pieces. So he ran a test. His team stripped down 2 owl burrows down to bare dirt. They piled a little under half a pound of fresh cow manure at the entrance and of one of them and left the other one clean. 4 days later, they collected everything the owls had eaten and switched which burrow got the manure, or the poop. Then ran it again to make sure the result wasn't a fluke. The owls with the poop by the front door ate 10 times as many dung beetles as the owls without it. It caught 6 times as many different kinds of beetles too. This owl is fishing with about the simplest lure there is. Standing guard by a stinking pile of poop with a line in the water, waiting on something to bite. Scientists count that as a real tool. An animal picking up an object on purpose to help it get something it wants, and that's hard to pin down in any wild animal, let alone a bird. That's what they were doing. They made a tool. And the poop's not even this bird's only trick. Researchers out at the University of Arizona found these owls will also drag home paper, plastic, tinfoil, and dry grass. Pretty much any loose material laying around sounded like a bird. They are a bird, right? Well, one owl even shredded up a cardboard box the researchers had brought the poop samples in. I used it to line its own nest. Best anyone can tell, all that mess piled up around the entrance is doing double duty. The smell pulls in bugs to eat, and a burrow that already smells lived in is a lot less likely to get taken over by some other owl scouting around for an empty hole to move into. Scientists are still working out how much that second part matters, but the food angle has the strongest evidence behind it. Either way, this owl turned a pile of poop into a dinner bell. It's not a dinner bell owl won't. And it's also, they turned it into a no vacancy sign at the same time. And it's been running that trick long before anybody in a lab coat figured out why it worked. Now, here's what that hole in the ground turns into an actual home. Come early spring, a male burrowing owl tries to win over a female by flipping straight up. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Sometimes close to 100 feet in the air. It's pretty good. Hovering there for a second, then dropping back down towards the barrow. He'll run that whole routine over and over until she's either interested or, he stops a little bit after he hits the ground. I don't know if they kill themselves over it, but hell, why not? Everybody else does. Once they're paired off, though, the two of them then preen each other's feathers and rub bills together. Ooh, we need some X's going across the screen here now. He'll even bring her food as a kind of gift, like when a guy gives a woman chocolate, only he's trying to give her, poop beetles. After that, the female lays 1 white egg a day, sometimes building up a batch as high as 12 eggs. Yeah, that's better for them than us. I don't want 12 children running around. And then she settles in and sits on them to keep them warm for about 28 to 30 days. She barely leaves the barrow the whole stretch. The male's job is to hunt for both of them and stand guard, either right at the entrance or on a perch close by, bringing food down to her the entire time she's sitting there. Now, when the eggs hatch, the chicks come out blind, nearly bald, and completely helpless. That's kind of like a baby, a human baby, right? And the mama stays down in the barrow, keeping them warm, while the father keeps the food coming in. That's when this bird pulls out a defense you would not expect from a baby with no fangs and no venom. Say, you're a rancher out checking on your cattle, and without meaning to, you walk right up, next to a hole in the ground. From somewhere down in the dark, you hear a rattle, sharp and buzzing, and every instinct you got says back away right now before a rattlesnake takes a piece out of your boot, right? Except there ain't no snake down there at all. It's a baby burrowing owl, down doing an impression good enough to make a grown adult change direction on instinct. Researchers tested this by playing that hissed to ground squirrels from an area with a long history of living along rattlesnakes, and those squirrels backed off from the owl's hiss just as fast as they backed off from an actual rattlesnake shaking its tail. There ain't no second chances when it comes to a rattlesnake. Y'all remember that. Now, a chick that can't even fly yet has learned how to sound like one of the things everybody in the field is already scared of. Well, these things pretty smart right out the nest, the poop nest that is. Once the chicks made it past that stage, things move fast. By 2 weeks old, they're up and walking around outside the barrow. First, short flights start around 4 weeks, and by 6 weeks, they can fly well enough to get around pretty well. They're chasing down live bugs on their own. 7 or 8 weeks is when they're doing all that good mess. But they stick close to their parents until about 12 weeks old, learning the family trade before they strike out to dig or burrow a hole of their own, and then they find their own poop. That family setup works out in some pretty unlikely places too. Take Cape Coral, Florida. It's a city of more than 200,000 people out on the Gulf Coast. And burrowing owls there dig their tunnels right in people's front yards. Don't bring a pile of crap into my yard, damn bird. Well, anyway, even in the empty lots between the houses, a local volunteer group called Cape Coral Friends of Wildlife marks every active burrow with stakes so nobody mows over it or builds on top of it. And if a yard doesn't already have one, volunteers will come dig a starter hole so a family of owls has somewhere to move into and bring their own poop. In a 2025 census run by those volunteers alongside the city's own park department, counting more than 7,000 owls living inside that one city, right alongside of everybody else who calls it home. Not every burrowing owl has it that easy. Out across most of the West, wildlife agencies have watched this bird's numbers slide for decades, going downhill. You don't slide uphill, you have to slide downhill. And a big part of the reason these things are sliding downhill traces back to another burrowing animal entirely. Prairie dogs used to dig a lot of the tunnels these owls moved into secondhand. And researchers with the U.S. Forest Service have tracked prairie dog populations dropping, that means sliding, more than 98% since the year 1900. Mostly from decades of ranchers and farmers working to clear them off their land. Kind of works that way, right? Take away the prairie dog town, and the ready-made housing this owl was counting on disappears right along with them. A burrowing owl that makes it through all that can live 6 to 9 years in the wild. And it doesn't build a brand new home every season either. It comes back to the same tunnel or the same home year after year, clearing it out and patching it up each spring instead of starting all over from scratch. That hole in the ground out past the edge of town isn't just a nest somebody built once and left behind. It's a homestead, used and reused, season after season. There's a family running that place right now that's been at the same address a whole lot longer than you've had yours, most likely. Except yours probably smells a whole lot better than theirs. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it a like. And we've grown big enough that you can go ahead and hype this video. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of The Untamed Lens. I'm Mr. V, and I'll see you in the next episode. What's that smell, damn it?